What's going on, everyone? Welcome back along to the channel. The Lions tour is done and dusted and out of here, and we are going back to the core of Southern Hemisphere rugby. It is the return of Super Rugby, and we have a boatload to look at because those guys out there who are regulars to the channel will know we've missed a couple of half weeks of Super Rugby. So we're going to be having a look back at those, and of course a look forward to this next full round, which is the last round-robin round of Super Rugby 2017. So lots to go through here, and of course it wouldn't be a Super Rugby preview without a special guest. Once again, we're welcoming back Brett Hartley to the channel. Thanks for joining me. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me again, man. Yeah, very good, thanks.
That's good, that's good. Now, we mentioned the Lions tour just as we introed there. As a outsider perspective, outside of New Zealand, and of course British and Irish Lions area as well. What were your thoughts on the tour? We've had some thoughts from people like the Scottish Cannon and of course all other guests on the channel as well, but what do you think about the tour? How did you think it went? What were your thoughts of the overall final result?
Yeah, look, it was a competitive tour. You could at least say that. I expected the Test series to be a 3-0 whitewash to the All Blacks. So obviously I was quite wrong there, but if I could think of, I probably couldn't think of a worse way to end the series as a 1-1 draw. I was shocked and dumbfounded after that final siren because I actually didn't know what would happen from there. I hate draws in every sport, and yeah, to see it end in a draw like that was just horrible.
It's like one of the most anticlimactic finishes to anything you've ever seen. The ref didn't even know what to do when it was a draw. No one had an idea what was going on. Everyone walked out like zombies because they were just too confused. It was crazy. It was madness. It's kind of weird. It kind of did truly reflect the series, though, in the way that it was quite a big battle between the two powerhouses of world rugby. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We are here for Super Rugby. And let's kick things off with a look back at the first sort of rugby that happened since the international break finished, which was round 15 part 2. Yes, this is very confusing, so keep up. We had 4 games in that round, so we're not going to go through these individually. We're going to have a look at the 2 groupings of these half rounds. So we have 4 matches in this week 15 part 2, where we had the Sharks going down to the Bulls. Bit of a sigh, yeah, just waiting for that. Of course, we had the Jaguares going down to the Kings. Go the mighty Kings. We had the Cheetahs getting pipped by the Stormers. That was a close one. And, of course, the Lions with an even closer result here against Sunwolves. It was only a whisker in it at 94 points to 7. Overall, it was an interesting week of Super Rugby. I thought the Sharks should have been favourites to beat the Bulls, but they couldn't get the job done there. As you were mentioning earlier, they struggled to do so on so many occasions. But I'll let you talk about them more in just a sec. But the Kings, great match for the Kings. Doesn't matter how much you win by, it's another win in the bank for the Kings. The Stormers carried on their wishy-washy season, getting a close one over the now not existing in Super Rugby Cheetahs, and of course the Lions. Well, every Crusaders fan feared this to happen. The Lions would just continue on their merry way and demolish everyone in their path, because really there's only one team at the moment that the Crusaders are scared of, and that is the Lions. And they have to do everything within their power to make sure no one is going to South Africa for a grand final. So that was a huge win. It was a blowout, and it made everyone who opposes of these new teams in Super Rugby go, oh, but the Sunwolves, blah, blah, blah. So that was a massive one. What did you make of those 4 matches?
Yeah, they were good matches, all of them. Some pretty big upsets there. Obviously, as a Sharks supporter, I was pulling my hair out with that Sharks and Bulls game. The Bulls, every Sharks fan knows that the Bulls are like the ultimate enemy. Going back to like 2007 where they had beat us in the grand final. So to lose to the Bulls, and I don't think we've beat them since like 2014 or something stupid like that. So that was absolutely horrible to lose at home. Really happy for the Kings. I've been supporting the Kings ever since they beat the Waratahs. I don't even know how many rounds back, but since they got that win over the Waratahs, I've been really backing them, and they've been showing that they can stay in this competition and play some good rugby. So yeah, overall, it was a good round, and the Lions had a really good win as well, just demolishing, just absolute demolition. And the Lions are getting a lot of their players back, like Combrink, who can really open up the game. So yeah, it was a good round of rugby.
It went a bit under the radar, though, with the Lions tour happening on that round. So most people probably don't even have an idea what even happened, especially like in New Zealand with the Lions going on and being in South Africa, which exactly most people in New Zealand don't even look at what happens in South Africa in Super Rugby unless the teams are travelling here. So a bit of a under the radar around that one for sure. But last weekend and just past, there was week 16 part 2. Yes, and again, a very odd one. I think this was the carry-on round of the Hurricanes Chiefs. Yeah, that we had about, weeks and weeks ago at the start of June. So this was a carry-on round of that. We had 5 matches. Australia joined the party. They come back into the group. And they kicked the round off with what I thought was a really interesting match. A bizarre match between the Reds and the Brumbies. And the Reds were at home for this one. And they come away with the win. But it was strange. The Brumbies should have won that game 100 times over. But they just let the Reds back in. And a team that never seems to perform at their best. I think the Reds have their bench to thank a lot for that match because they really made a massive impact coming in for those old guys. They sent Stephen Moore back to the retirement village and they got some youth and enthusiasm into the team, which changed things completely. And they come away with a 16-15 victory, which, damn you Reds, that was the only game I got wrong on my SuperBru picks as well. In an amazing week, which I would have stormed up the leaderboard had I got that one too. But 16-15, an entertaining game. And the fact of the scoreline, Standard of Rugby, following a Lions match that ended 15-all, we won't talk about that. Second game of the round was the Force up against the Rebels. Now, this was that, they talk about it being the battle of the relegated Australian teams. The teams talked about it being not a battle of the relegated Australian teams. So there was a lot riding on this one for the two sides. The Force, though, I think played pretty well and nullifying the Rebels down to a 31-22 win to the home team. And then the highlight of the weekend was the Jaguares travelling to Australia up against the Waratahs, who are still terrible and don't know which way to run and how to score any tries. 40 points to 27. A good-looking Jaguares took them down. That was a good one to watch. And how about this as well? The Kings. The Kings are back again. 31-30 for the second week in a row. They've defeated their opponent by 31-30. That is classy. This time the Bulls, who many were saying, wow, they look quite good against the Sharks. Well, the Kings say, get out of my yard. They are back with another 1-point victory. And they look so good at the moment on a 2-game winning streak. And final match of the round, the poor old Sunwolves got hammered yet again. The Storm was putting a half century on them. 52-15. Some more interesting and entertaining matches. What was your highlight of that weekend?
Obviously, I'm a bit biased, but definitely the Western Force game for me. Well, the thing I took away from it is that, like you said, it was being built up as like the battle of the relegated teams. Neither team really played like it. It was a really high quality game. Not too many scrappy mistakes from either team. There were a couple, but not as many as I was predicting there to be. And they just went at it, and they played like they were going to be in the competition for 10 more years. And that's the Force had a really good set piece in that game. The first try they scored, they were 14 men down and scored a try right off the line out. So, that was really good from them. And then obviously the Jaguares beating the Waratahs, like you said, was a really good game. And I definitely didn't predict anything like that. I'm sure the Cannon's probably still crying about it, but it was a really good round overall. And obviously the Kings getting one over the Bulls at Loftus is just immense from them.
Yeah, that's why he doesn't want to come back on the Super Rugby preview, because he's still crying about the Waratahs. Still, and he wants to come on and talk about the finals when he's only going to have one team representing Australia that's going to get kicked out in the first round, hopefully. But yeah, an entertaining round. I thought the Rebels, like you're talking about in that Force game, I thought the Rebels did show like that attacking ability that they know they have. They just can't seem to display it. And the Force, I think, have looked a lot better team this year. They should be pretty happy with how they've come across. Of course, we see no Cheetahs, Lions, or Sharks throughout their weekend either. But some good results that make this next upcoming weekend very hard to predict and very difficult to pick what way it's going to go. So, nicely segueing on, we'll move swiftly on to the SuperBru Picks leaderboard. For the predictor, which I will put my hand up and say, like earlier, all except one, right. And if you go look at the round leaderboard, I was second. for just the second time this season. So I had a great round for me, but unsurprisingly, it's still Caleb 42N leading the way. This man is just dominating the leaderboard. He sits top. Waggers is below him on second, but the lead is getting chopped down. And it's just, what, 1.3 points? Now, that's only, you know, a good match with a bonus point in the bag as well, that he could take that lead finally away from Caleb. So he's going to have a big weekend as they head towards the finals. Devon's dropped down. He's now into third. But again, he's only 0.25 points behind second place Waggers. So it's very, very tight at the top of the table between those boys. Other people of note we've got down here, Driving Moore's doing very well. He's moved up into 8th, so won't talk about that because he'll skite about it. The Reviewer's the one who picked up the yellow cap. They're up 7 spots. My pick's going nicely as well as we move down to 21st. So I'm up a mighty 6 places, which I'm pretty happy about. And the most important thing is I'm still quite far ahead of, you can see, lowly old Scottish Cannon down there in 32nd. But, Brett, you're sitting in 28th. You're right in between me and the Cannon. How are your picks going? Are you happy with what's happening with your team? I noticed, or with your picks, I should say. You've sat steady. Not too much movement there, though.
Yeah, these last 2 rounds haven't been the best for me. I actually haven't picked any of the upsets, really. So, like you said, staying in the same place, but I'd prefer to be moving up and catching you, to be honest.
you got a bit of work to do. Let's see, you're on 108, and where's my team up there? 114. So, well, a good week. A few bonus points in there. You could do something special. It's still up in the air. It's still up in the air. Get behind those Sharks and Force, and we'll see what happens. On to the other leaderboard. It is a fantasy team, of course, where we have another interesting top 3 with plenty of changes. We've still got the MFCFO's Blues leading the way. He also picked up the yellow cap, which is massive for the guy in first to pick up the yellow cap, because that just means increased lead as he continues his dominance at the top. The awesome transgender Sloths sit there second. Solar Eclipses in third. So these boys are doing the job. They're right there at the top all season long. My side is down here, pretty similar spot in 22nd. So I'm 21st and 22nd, but we moved up 3 spots as well in the weekend. So not too bad. I'm not going too badly in either of them. I'm happy to sit mid-table as long as I beat the Cannons. That's all that matters. That is #1 goal in life at the moment. So far we're going all right. So we've updated the leaderboard. We've had a look at the last couple of rounds of Super Rugby. There's only one thing remaining to do, and that is have a look at the next round of Super Rugby. So it is technically round 17. And we have a full complement of matches as well, of all teams in action. New Zealand sides are back, Australian teams in action, South African teams are in action. It is all to play for this weekend because there is a lot on the line. Not only positions, but playoff spots, who you're going to match up against, who you will miss out on. It's strategic. It's very strategic. And the teams like the Highlanders and your Sharks, for instance, they have to watch out who they're going to match up with as well. The leaderboard at the top, Crusaders, Lions, it's neck and neck. There's a lot on the line this weekend. So we're going to have a look through, see how these results could possibly affect these teams. And of course, give you our picks as to who we think is going to win. So we kick it off. First game of round 17 is the Highlanders and the Reds. It is a Trans-Tasman derby match, this one. But what's interesting about this game, though, no Smiths in it. So the team has just announced tonight that the 2 Smiths, Aaron Smith, Ben Smith, will be missing from the Highlanders lineup. So that's a big loss. 2 very influential and experienced people in their Highlanders outfit. But thinking about that, an interesting thing that happened during the Lions tour that maybe some people wouldn't know about is that the Highlanders actually dealt to the Crusaders in a friendly match sort of midweek or mid-season while the Lions tour was ongoing. So that was pretty much the Highlanders versus the Crusaders without All Blacks. Still fairly good sides as well. And the Highlanders put them away by a 30 to mid-teen margin. Can't remember exactly what it was. But a good near-on 20-point margin to the Highlanders, which I think is a huge, huge result for their confidence, knowing, you know, that side is good enough to really put in a good performance. So missing a couple of Smiths, but I think they're going to be good enough to take out the Reds, who still, given a chance, can score points. But I don't think that the Highlanders are going to give them enough chance at all to even get into this game. It is at home for the Highlanders as well, which is huge. The Reds on the road. Utterly, I think, disappointing the Reds this season. So much promise, and the sooner they disappear, the better. Do you think they've got any chance against the Highlanders?
No, I don't. No, no chance. Look, they played well last week. I supposed to beat the Brumbies. They kind of got a lucky escape when Quaid was able to slot over that last minute kick to win the game. But they travelled to New Zealand. They play in the Highlanders. Highlanders played very well at home. They've had a pretty good season this year. I think they've been flying under the radar a bit because of the success of a lot of other teams this season. But they've been in good form. Losing both Smiths is obviously quite huge for them, especially Ben Smith, who's one of their key attacking players. So I've said Highlanders by 14 in this one, and I was kind of being generous towards the Reds with that as well. So I'm expecting a pretty one-sided scoreline.
Yeah, the Brumbies really let them into that game last weekend. They let them sneak in, and then they just lost control. And, Cooper now the penalty to give them win, but he was rather average throughout that match. Yeah. They could have really done a lot better. What's the answer? I don't know what the answer is to the Reds. To be fair, I'm not too interested in finding it either, because they seem to have so much talent. And I know there's some Reds fans out there. Quite often I get some messages from one in particular, big Reds fan, and I do feel sorry for him. It must be the most frustrating team to support at the moment when you get all these huge signings throughout the season. I've said it all year long, but they have really failed to deliver. I mean, 4 wins and 10 losses from a team of these stars just isn't good enough. It's just not good enough at all. That's still in for them though. Bizarrely, they are equal points with the Force in second. Like, who would have thought would be saying that? And how can you drop the Force as a team when they're your second best side? If they can get a good result here, they could be staying there as well. So I don't think the Reds will do it, and I think they're not going to go anywhere. If anything, I'd drop them down to 4th. But that would involve the Waratahs winning, which is unlikely. I've got the Highlanders by 11. So I've gone even more considerate than you. Just I think a long layoff. The Reds have had a game into the season, back into the season again. Just think they'll be probably a bit more tougher, or a bit more ready, probably is a better word for it. Yeah. Then the Highlanders might take a bit of time to get back into the game, back into that high tempo, and missing those key enforcers that control their game and that they rotate their game around could affect them a little bit, but they've got good enough players that they should get the result over the line without too many problems in that first up match. This should be a good way to start the weekend. It follows up though with the Rebels, the poor old Rebels, up against the Jaguares. They look good though. I think the Jaguares, when they were in Australia, first game they were there and they put in a good performance as well. Coming up against the Waratahs, who are a damn average team. Not much going their way at the moment, but still, most people don't rate the Jaguares on the road. At home, they're always that pretty hard team to beat. On the road, they lose all that. They lose all that 16th man sort of thing, the big crowd support. But they put in a really good display in a bit of a game that you wouldn't be surprised if they lost at all. But now they've got to step it up though. Coming up against the Rebels, a team that will play similar in the way that both teams will attack. The Rebels will want to attack. Whether they can or not is another issue. I've still got the Jaguars to come away with this one. I think it should be quite convincing for them as well. Is there any chance of a Rebels second win?
Look, I think I haven't tipped the Rebels in this one, but I've actually gone quite close. I think the Rebels will... I have no idea which way the ARU is leaning right now, so I think both the Rebels and the Force are going to come up playing like it's their last game, basically this round. So I think if the Rebels attack right and they just swing it right wide every time to Corey Betty, who's probably easily their best player, and they're able to score some tries, and they might be able to win. But Jaguars played really well against the Waratahs last week. Their forwards in particular really dominated the breakdown, and their forwards able to break the Waratahs line pretty much at will. So I've got the Jaguars by 10, so pretty close. I think the Rebels will come out with a lot of passion. So it could go either way, but yes, like I said, Jaguars by 10.
I've gone slightly the other way. I've gone Jaguars by 17. I still think it'll be an interesting match, but just not as much if it was the Jaguars at home. But I still think they'll be plenty good enough. They've got a pretty kind fixtures to close off their season as well, going up against the Waratahs, who have been average, and then the Rebels, that could definitely close out this season in a very positive manner that they will be very happy with as well. They scored a lot of points versus the Waratahs, and they'll want to score a lot of points against the Rebels as well and really finish off their season the best way they can. They're not going to catch up with the Sharks, but they won't want to drop below the Kings. That would be disastrous if they drop below the Kings. And the Kings are only 2 points behind, so they need to be really careful about that. How amazing it is. We all say, oh, the Jaguars have played all right this year. You know, they've had a better season, but they're just about worse than the Kings. And many people are trying to put the Kings to the back of the mind, which is a bit of a shame, the way they've been this year. Third game of the weekend, speaking of the Kings, they're back in action. 3 wins on the trot for the Kings. That's what I'm going for. They're up against the Cheetahs, and I feel sorry for the Cheetahs. I feel sorry for the Cheetahs fans. A much more established team that we won't be seeing in Super Rugby anymore. That's a real shame. These guys have been around forever. They've got a good, loyal fan base. And I know there's a lot of Cheetahs fans out there that watch these as well. So let rip in the comments of what you think about the organisation that should not be named. That begins with S. Yeah, so I feel sorry for the Cheetahs on what they could do. The Kings unbeaten since the international break. That's a way to put a twist on 2 wins in a row. And it's the 2 teams gone from South Africa as well. So something to prove possibly. What have you got? The Kings for a 3-peat?
Yeah, I think so. Like before you started recording, you and I were having a conversation about how the Kings are probably easily one of the best teams to watch in Super Rugby. Their backline is so fast and flashy, and they've got a really composed 10 in line of Crusaders. So both teams kind of have got nothing to lose, really. It's already announced that they're both leaving. So they've got nothing to lose, so they'll go out there and just play rugby. So I think it'll definitely be a very good game to watch. And so I've got Kings by 12. I think the Kings will really come out well, start well, and based on their last 2 results, I don't really see the Cheetahs beating them. There might be an upset. So yeah, but I've got Kings by 12. I reckon they'll do it.
Kings by 12. I'm going Kings as well, but I'm only going by 3. The Kings can win, but they don't know how to win very much or very large. So, you know, a win's a win, still in the books, but I think it'll be another close one. But they seem to know how to close a game out, don't they? They seem to know how to put it away at the death, and that is the chorus, and that is the key thing. It's all well and good to score flashy tries and do all the good things, but if you can't defend a lead at the end of the match, you end up with draws like the All Blacks. That's how it comes down to. So, both going for the Kings. Again, agreeing on that one too. It's an easy week in prospects, but I guarantee you we will be far from 9 out of 9 come the end of the weekend. Because it steps up now. Yeah, we get our first New Zealand team back in action. The Blues on the road. And they're going to face the Sunwolves, who I think are going to be hurting quite significantly. They've conceded 150 near points in the last 2 rounds. That is bad. And they've got a Blues team visiting them who like to attack. They like to play. But they haven't played for a few weeks now. Of course, they're going to have a couple of players back from All Black duty who they may or may not play. Teams haven't all been announced just yet, so we're unsure what team they're going to put out. But still, it's a very attacking, a very aggressive Blues side. That could go over there and they could put some more points on the board against the Sunwolves. I've got the Blues doing this one quite easily. What's happened to the Sunwolves? Any idea?
No, not really. They don't really, on paper, they don't really look really great as well, so it could go down to that. Coaching staff, I can't even name their coach off the top of my head, so maybe it goes down to coaching. Players don't really have that much. They've shown some glimpses. Obviously, they got their win over the Bulls in either Singapore or Japan. But they've been pretty horrible this season. They haven't really, besides that Bulls game, they really haven't shown that much. They've been really weak on defense, and then in attack, they'll hold the ball a few phases and then just aimlessly box kick it away. So they haven't really shown really much of anything this year. So I think the Blues should do it quite comfortably. I've gone Blues by 25 because I normally don't like picking teams by 30 or 35 or something. So I've gone 25 just to be a bit safe. But yeah, I reckon the Blues will do it quite comfortably.
It's strange. Who would have gone Lions by 87?
Oh, gee.
It wouldn't have happened at all. The Sunwolves coach is Alfredo Tiatia as a head coach. Ben Herring is one of the assistants. So I know both of those. They're former New Zealand. I've been hearing, not sure if he played for the All Blacks, but he definitely did play in the higher grade Super Rugby and things like that for a long, long time. Filo Tiatia is, again, another former New Zealand rugby player as well. He did not play for the All Blacks, so there you go. He was there or thereabouts for a long, long time. But yeah, again, it's pretty unproven coaching staff, though. That's a big thing about it. We haven't seen what these guys can do at this level, so it's a bit of a baptism of fire for them. I'm going with the Blues as well. I'm probably going conservative here. I've got the Blues by 22. I've seen your 25. You're probably more on it, yeah, but seems to be picking quite close. And we didn't even plan these. We didn't know each other's picks before we started.
It's always like this, isn't it?
It is. We seem to pick very similarly. This is kind of odd, but Blues should put some points on them. You're right what you say. I think the Sunwolves attack has definitely fallen off the pace of it as this year's gone on. I think they were a very good attacking side. Always had that spark in attack. They've lost it a little bit, and the defence hasn't really improved either. So it's a shame for the Sunwolves, but I do hope and they continue to improve as well as the competition goes on, because they need that competition at the top level. So both big wins for the Blues. As we move on to our next match, another New Zealand team up against an Australian team. Next up, it's the Chiefs versus the Brumbies. Now, the Brumbies will be hurting as well. Another team will be hurting. They would have wanted and expected to beat the Reds last weekend, so that'll be a shock loss for them, being that top Australian qualifier. They would have wanted to go in with momentum, go on with that win behind them, representing the country effectively, because there's nothing else for them to play for. Now they're up against the Chiefs. Again, we come back to that thing of the New Zealand team's not playing for a few weeks. Again, a pile of players from the All Blacks, the Māori All Blacks. A lot of players left the Chiefs during that international period. So they've got a lot of players coming back into the mix that will still be in relative match fitness state. So they could be a bit of a tough prospect. The Chiefs at home as well, I think they'll be far too good. I think the Brumbies already got their heads down heading into the final, and they could find this one tough coming across to face the Chiefs. Is there any chance for the Australian champions?
My pick probably won't suggest this, but no, I wouldn't say there is. It'll be interesting to see what the Brumbies actually do this week, whether they'll actually rest players knowing that they have a guaranteed final spot and they're not really playing for anything. So while I think they will pick a relatively full string side, I think there's also a chance that Stephen Larkin might rest a couple of his best players. So I've gone Chiefs by 10. The Chiefs have struggled against a few small teams this year. And the Brumbies haven't fared. They obviously haven't beaten any, but they've fared okay against a couple of the Kiwi sides. So the Chiefs win this game. I've gone by 10 just to be safe, but it could easily be by 20 or 20 plus points, I'd say.
So the Brumbies sit fourth, and that's presumably where they'd stay. They need a lot to go their way. A big win over the Chiefs. A bonus point win over the Chiefs is what they really need, and the Stormers to lose if they're going to possibly jump into third. But where they sit right now, it'll be a trip across the Tasman for the Hurricanes, and Brumbies won't want that. That's really, it's bad news for the Brumbies no matter what way they look. And I never thought about that prospect of them resting players for their quarterfinal matchup. But do they though? Does that benefit them in any way when they need these guys? They can't rest them. Yeah, it's like they're not going to have a long postseason, are they? Because if hell freezes over and they do beat the Hurricanes, I mean, what's next? It doesn't get any easier for them. I think they need these guys fully fit, match fit, ready to go, banging them out, no questions, just get the result on there. So they'll be wanting to bounce back as well from that match against last week. Imagine those guys if they lost the Reds and then they get dropped. And then they say, here you go, quarter-final. This is your chance to redeem yourself. It's not a bad tactic, actually. Larkin's not a stupid player or a stupid man, a stupid coach. So he'll be clued on. It could be something that you could see from the Brumbies. It would be interesting to see what team they name. I'm still going Chiefs. I've only got them by 18, though. Like you said, you brought up a few good points here about how the Chiefs play. Not being their best year this year. So they could struggle. They could struggle to get something away. But the Brumbies, they'll play that same rugby. Forward-based, forward-dominated, mauling, the line-out plays, the set pieces. That's what the Brumbies are all about. So both going with the wins for the Chiefs. But now we're getting to the tough stuff. Now is the nitty-gritty. Now is when we step it up a gear. Hurricanes, Crusaders. This one has a lot riding on it. This one has a boatload, especially for the Crusaders. Hurricanes, they could still drop out of that top spot wildcard place to the Chiefs, should they presumably get that win against the Brumbies. But, you know, the Lions are coming. I know all New Zealand fans will be hating those words now, but now the South African Lions are coming. Don't worry about the British and Irish ones. Now the South African ones are coming. They're only 2 points behind. Superior bonus points is doing the job for the Lions at the moment. There's a heat riding on this one. What's your thoughts? Who is going to win this mouth-watering matchup?
I found this one really, really difficult to pick. Obviously, I think what it might go down to is not that many of the Crusaders actually picked for the All Blacks, surprisingly. So, whereas a lot of the Hurricanes were picked, especially in the back line. It's hard to go against a team that's gone 14-0 this season, and obviously that last game with the Hurricanes was like a closest thing you get to a test match in Super Rugby. The conditions weren't too good in the last game they played, and it was a clinical performance by a really well coached Crusader side. So I've gone Crusaders by 3 in this one. I think it'll be really, really close. I'm not sure what the conditions will be for the game. Especially if it's wet, I think the Crusaders will. They could quite easily win if it's wet. I think they're more structured for sort of a wet type of game where they can get a lot of kicking in. And if they neutralise Beauden Barrett and his crossfield kicks, they could do quite well.
It's going to be huge. You mentioned that last game that they played. It was a coaching masterclass, tactical masterclass that put them over the Hurricanes. You talk about All Blacks, it's like the All Black pack at the Crusaders versus the All Black backline at the Hurricanes. That's what it's going to be. Weather's going to play a huge part, like you said before, and who gets that dominance in the forward pack. If the Crusaders can do that again, they've got the players in the backline to do it. Can they step it up and do it again? I don't think they can do the same trick they did a few weeks ago against the Hurricanes. I don't think it's going to work, but you know, the coaches are clever. Old Robinson is already, you know, sniffing around that All Black jumper on that All Black coaching seat. So, you know, this is a great opportunity for him. Undefeated regular season and then take a title. That would be, you know, monumental. That would be historical if that could happen. So, who are you going for the win? What was your margin?
Crusaders by 3.
Oh, I've got Crusaders by 4.
Oh.
This is getting a bit ridiculous now. It's getting a bit silly. So that would be great. Like, if that wins, when it happens for the Crusaders, they will secure that top spot. They only need to win, because that 2 points difference, even if the Lions get a bonus point, they will still fall a point short. So it all lies on this for the Crusaders and the Lions. Whoever gets that result will take the big one. What they call it, minor premiership title, almost, to finish top of the round robin. So that's a big game of the weekend. I think that'll be the match that'll be coming on the channel for the game of the weekend of Super Rugby. We've got a couple of matches to go. 3 matches left in this round. This is one for you. The Western Force versus the Waratahs. This is a goodie. What do you got? Give it to me.
All right. So I'm not sure where you'll go with this. But I think it's quite clear by my hat that which way I've gone. The Force were really good. I think comparing the Force and the Waratahs last week, the Force, who relatively don't have that much talent on paper, and the Waratahs, who on paper should be quite good. The difference in coaching really showed last week how Dave Vessels has really taken over the Force this year and created a really strong culture. And Daryl Gibson at the Waratahs, since he took over from Michael Check, has kind of destroyed their culture and doesn't really have a plan. Kiwi coaches normally don't go that well in Australia ever for some reason. So basically what I was alluding to there is I've picked the Force. Obviously, the Force have a really good set piece. Their backs are really good. Bill Meeks, who I've been screening for all year to be selected in the Wallabies team. I think he should be a starting centre, either 12 or 13. He's been absolutely phenomenal. Chance Penny, who was really good last week for the Force, has copped a 3-week ban, which really sucks. So we're missing some attacking power there. But the Force forwards, Adam Coleman's always a really strong force for us, and no pun intended. But so yeah, I think we'll win the front forwards battle. the Waratahs haven't been that great this year. We think we've all been kind of, or aside from Waratahs fans, we've all been laughing at them all season. They've been pretty horrible this season. So, you know, I tipped the Force by 8, so it will be a quite close game, but I reckon the Force could easily get the win over the Waratahs.
Force by 8, really? I've got the Force by 6.
Oh,
this
man.
is getting insane. This is getting insane. Also, interesting with the table as well in Australia, it all falls down to this for the Force too. It would be their best finish, wouldn't it? Finish second in the Australian Conference, wherever it would be. Overall, they're sitting, quite far down, sitting behind the Kings, of course. Everyone sits behind the Kings. But overall, for the Force, this is a really good season for them. And another win here, if they keep above the Reds and the Waratahs, that's got to be a success for them. That's got to be a really big success for them. And it's got to play in the minds of if these idiots at Australian Rugby decide what the hell they want to do and who they want to get rid of.
I don't know if they even watch Super Rugby, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. I feel the same way. It's like they don't even have any idea. Yeah, it's like they complain, about teams not bringing the competition up to standard and things like that. But we wouldn't have the Lions like they are today if we didn't have teams that developed. It's got to go through a process. We're going to miss the best of the cheaters because of this whole rubbish what's going on here. You don't win the Curry Cup undefeated and be a crap team. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen at all. So we're going to miss the best of them. Some really good South African players are going to be missing from Super Rugby. And what do they know? What do they care? They've lost a bit out there, I think, especially with the Cheetahs and the Kings. The Kings are a great team to watch. But the Force, good season for them. And I think they're going to close it out as well here over the Waratahs, who have just been dreadful. Just been dreadful. They should hang their heads in shame and just sack themselves at the end of the season because they've been terrible. They're one of the worst seasons. They're worse than the Reds in terms of what they've promised and what they've delivered. The Reds had hope and potential, which they have delivered in small portions. But the Waratahs had a professional group of top quality players who you just expect that, minimum requirement is topping that table. They're always going to have a run against someone. The Brumbies turned out to be that team, but they have been way off the pace completely. So, good luck to the Force. I've got them by 6. And also when we talk about the table, I failed to mention it when we were talking about the Crusaders Hurricanes match, but this is big for the Canes as well, which we didn't. We talked about what they could do for the Crusaders, but for the Hurricanes, if they don't get this win, and the Chiefs do pick up their win when they go up against the Brumbies, which we're picking they will actually overtake the Hurricanes, which would mean the Hurricanes could potentially go to South Africa to play the Stormers, which is a massively different prospect to playing the Brumbies in Australia. So there is a lot on this for the Hurricanes defending their title here, as well as the Chiefs, because they don't want to go to South Africa, as well as the Crusaders, because no one wants to go to South Africa for a final, and I want to watch it. I don't want to get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. There is a lot on the line here in that one matchup between those two sides. We could see a completely different table. We could see Lions Crusaders. Potentially we could see Brumbies Stormers, but unlikely. And then we could see Chiefs Hurricanes. We could see Sharks and Highlanders turn around. We haven't even talked about those guys yet. So a lot happening on that final, on that match between the Crusaders and the Hurricanes. So this is another one for you. Next up is the Sharks versus the Lions. Now your poor old Sharks haven't been the best over the last few weeks. And possibly, like we just talked about, this could be a quarterfinal replay match if things work out the way they could do, whether the Sharks finish in the bottom wildcard spot or the next one up, swapping with the Highlanders, and where the Lions finish, obviously. This could be replayed next week, of course, with the Lions at home, but the Sharks have the home ground advantage this week. Do we see an upset by your Sharks?
This time I've actually got my head over my heart, so... No, after that performance against the Bulls, I know the Sharks have been really inconsistent this season. It's always been hard being a Sharks fan for that very reason. 1 week they're phenomenal, the next week they're just atrocious. So they might bounce back and have a really good game, but after that Bulls game getting annihilated by the Bulls at home, it just not, or for me at least, it wasn't acceptable at all. So I've gone Lions by 8, so I think it probably will be very close like the last Sharks-Lions game. But the Lions, they've just been in blockbusting form all season. They've just been... I didn't think they could actually improve from last season, but they have. And if they probably made the same mistake as they did last year by resting their players to go to Argentina, because they'll probably be like they would be tied with the Crusaders, or they'll probably be first because of that huge win they had. So they'll probably start themselves up again by resting their players to go to Argentina. But the Sharks, they'll compete. I'll be supporting them. I'll be happy if they win. But the Lions, I think, will win this one.
It's ironic, isn't it? At the different opposite end of the season as well. They did it right back at the start of the season.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, the Lions aren't what they used to be last year. And, well, what idiots everyone who said that was. They've been phenomenal this year. And it's just insane that they've done it in the same team, the same instance, just at a different time of the season. They would be ahead. Because a win there would have put them 4 points up, which would have been, they're only behind by 2. So it would have gone, poof, completely switch it around. But why would you do it in the last round of the season as well, like they did last year? Yeah. This is their season. If they get a home final, I'd back them to beat anyone. Even if the Crusaders go undefeated, I think I'd still nudge the Lions right now. This is before any playoffs. But right now, if their final was tomorrow in South Africa, Lions versus I don't care who, I would put them up by, depending which team, a slender margin. I'm going for the Lions in this one as well. I've gone a bit bigger though. I've gone the Lions by 19. They're looking too good. They're looking too good, and they are primed. They are primed and ready for a big performance. I think they're going to gun it this year for the final. I think they're going to play the best team. They've had a little break. They've got to put out their best side. They've got to go for 5 points. Who knows? the way rugby's been lately. The Crusaders and the Hurricanes could be a draw.
Yeah, oh man. If that happens.
Imagine if that happened. That would be insane.
If that happens, we need to start thinking of an extra time, to be honest.
Rugby fans would just be, oh no, not again. We've seen too much of this. If that happens, Jesus God, that would be just... You heard it here first. It's a possibility. That would be spectacular. Both going with the Lions. Do you think they're going to top the table?
The Lions?
Yes.
Probably not. I think the Crusaders will win this week. So if they don't, the Lions probably will. I think you said they're 2 points behind, are they?
Yes.
So yeah, it all really hinges on that Hurricanes Crusaders game. So yeah, they have a chance to top it, but I think the Crusaders have been really good this season, and I think they're going to close it out undefeated. One
game remains. The Bulls, your favourite side, versus the Stormers. I like the Stormers. I like the Stormers quite a lot. They're one of my... Aside from the Lions, I've always liked the Stormers, and the quality of players they had, and quite often the style of rugby that they can play throughout the ages. I'm not talking about this season, I'm talking about years gone by. Always had a soft spot for the old Stormers. And for the final game of the round robin, the heart has taken control for the Stormers. I've got them to put a win over the Bulls. Have you done the same? Are you going to back your bitter rivals in the Bulls?
No way. My SuperBru's been absolutely destroyed by the Bulls this season, so I'd never pick them.
Poor old Bulls. What's your margin for that one?
I've gone Stormers by 14. They had a really good game. I mean, they were playing the Sunwolves, so I guess it's not that impressive, but it was a pretty convincing margin. Dylan Lades especially has had a huge breakout season this year. And, you know, he scored 2 tries against the Sunwolves. Technically, he scored 3, but he gave his last one to Cheslin Colby after he broke the line. So I'd say he scored 3 tries and set up 1. And he's just an attacking machine. He's kind of come out. He was at the Force a couple of years ago, so I remembered him from then. But he's gone sort of from a relatively unknown player to an impact player for the Springboks off the bench. So I think he'll be key against the Bulls. The Bulls have Warwick Gallant. He's a really good player. He's just come back from injury recently, so I think he'll be their key in attack for them. And I don't think Andre Pollard's back for the Bulls yet either. So I don't think the Bulls can do it. So yeah, Stormers by 14.
I remember when he played for the Force. So I remember the first season he played there, I had a real struggle finding out how to pronounce his name. Because it's not said exactly how it's spelt.
No.
Like, you'd think it'd just be Leads or something, but that doesn't make sense because there's a Y in there.
Yeah.
I remember him, and he's come a long way. He's come a long way from those Force days, but he did have a good season with the Force. I remember he was quite an attacking player then, but now he's got a better platform, better surrounding players. No offense to the Force, but he's really matured nicely into a real attacking weapon for the Stormers. I'm going Stormers by 22.
Oh, yeah.
The Richie Beno is cracking out in this one. The Bulls are hot and cold, aren't they? They can look decent one week and then they can look absolutely terrible. Yeah. They should just put their season to bed, finish it off now. That's it. We're done. Bulls are all over. To be second in your pool with a 4-win, 10-loss record, that's no good.
And I think
no good at all.
I think that crowds really show their season. I've never seen a stadium so consistently empty. It's just been terrible watching games in Loftus.
It's been a poor season for the Bulls. It's been I think it's been one of the worst, really, that I've seen. And it's really disappointing because last year they played with an evolved kind of way of playing. They were more attacking. They really adopted the counter-attack style of rugby. And I thought, shit, these guys have got their heads screwed on. They're really moving, for a South African team. We know the Lions did it last year, but to change their style so drastically from a team that's predominantly so forward-dominated to coming into trying to mould the new style, I was encouraged by how they were playing, but they've just, out the window, gone with that just completely this year, and it's absolutely killed them. Poor Bulls, their season's done. Stormers will truck on though, and this could be effective for the Stormers where they sit. Yeah, they'll want to make sure they secure that third spot in the conference winners as well. So it's big for them to make sure they don't even let the Brumbies have a sniff, but they were probably lost by that stage, so it won't even matter. But if the Brumbies do get the upset, it could light a fire under the Stormers as well. So it's going to be one hell of a weekend. That was our final match of the round as well. So finally, before we wrap up, what's your top 8 going to be? You're going Crusaders, Lions at the top, and what's your Hurricanes or Chiefs? Highlanders or Sharks? They're the ones that are going to change. What do you think it's going to go? Well, you've said Crusaders will pip it at the top. So it's really Canes, Chiefs, and the other one is Highlanders or Sharks.
I think, in my opinion, I think it's actually going to pretty much stay the same as to what it is now. I think I reckon the Canes will finish above the Chiefs. Crusaders, Lions, like I said, could go either way depending on the result in the Hurricanes game. And then the Sharks will stay in the 8th spot. I was hoping they'd catch the Crusaders, but they don't really have much of a chance. So, the 7, 8, and then 1, 2 spots could change, but probably not. I reckon pretty much what it is right now.
So the Sharks they'll pretty much need a bonus point win.
Yeah.
Or they'd need to win by about 60, 70 points to get up over the losing Highlanders, which just a normal Friday night. Yeah. No worries. But it would need a mammoth effort. I think if it goes the way I think it will, I think the Chiefs are going to get that top wildcard spot. I don't think they deserve it so much, but I think the Crusaders will beat the Hurricanes, and all the Chiefs need is 1 point. They're only 1 point behind. If they get their victory, which they're playing the Brumbies, aren't they? That's who we were talking about before. Yep. They've got it. They need to win. They don't need to draw. Draw seems to be the word of the day at the moment. They need to draw, and they'll pip the Hurricanes into that top wildcard spot. So that's my pick. Stay the same, except you get a change at 5 and 6 to see the Hurricanes making the trip to South Africa. What do you Canes fans think about that? And what do you Chiefs fans think about the possibility of going to Australia instead of South Africa as well? That would be amazing. Imagine the Canes versus the Stormers in South Africa. That could be great. But we'll cover that next weekend because we're going to have a big finals show. I'm hoping to get as many thoughts from as many people as possible on there. So I'm going to invite you back for your thoughts on those quarterfinal matches next weekend, Brett, if you're keen as well. Yep. And hopefully some others will have a big show with everyone's picks for these big final matches. But we are done and dusted for today. Too long as per always. I always talk too much, but that's cool because it's Super Rugby back in the house. So that is it for today. Thanks very much, Brent, for joining me. Anything you want to give a shout out to, or where people can catch you if they want to hear you raging at referees or anything in the weekend, like I do?
Pretty much just my Twitter. If you follow Cornflake, you've probably seen me before because I tag him a lot of stuff. So yeah, you'll be able to catch me on Twitter and probably see my banter with the Scottish Cannon all weekend.
Excellent. You can get all his links to his Twitter and all that sort of stuff in the description below. But we are done for this week. Enjoy your rugby. Let us know your picks below. Of course, don't forget to make your SuperBru picks as well, so you can lose to our picks, because we are coming out that leaderboard again. It's late, but we're still coming. Don't forget about us. That is it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you all next week for the quarterfinals. Until then, take care.